Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. I've not got a co-host this evening. It's just going to be myself, and our guest is Rita Baillie, who is running for council with the Alba Party in East Kilbride. Now, Rita's relatively new to Twitter, so we're finding out more than anything about Rita, because obviously this is a Twitter-based podcast, how it started. So, Rita, I'm going to come straight to you and just ask you to give us a wee introduction, who you are, what you stand for, and what you hope to achieve as councillor if successful.
Right, my name's Rita Baillie, born and bred in East Kilbride. Women's rights is foremost in my mind right now, and obviously independence. And I just feel, I was a member of SNP for years, and I just feel they've lost their way, totally lost their way. And I think if it's independence, then it has to be Alba. And everything that's happening with women's rights, it just really, it hits home to me, because I'm at that age where I remember fighting for women's rights in factories, as did my mother and my grandmother. And I just feel we're starting to eradicate it a wee bit, and it's just not right.
I mean, as a man, I obviously have not got the experience of the women's side of women's rights, but it's so shocking that it scares me. And much respect to you for actually putting your head up and saying, well, no, I'm standing up for women, because it's people like you and years gone by, and even to this point today, that will ensure that the women's safeties improve, because we can't say that they're absolutely great at the minute. If you look at the women are some of the most affected statistics in every single situation. So it's great respect that you're actually standing up and you're trying to be counted. The fact that you're doing it for ARPA and with independence in mind as well, it ticks all the boxes for me, because this is a pro-independence, pro-Scotland podcast and how it was set up. We've found our way in to the concerns that are happening to women and children. I mean, the child sex survey is something that's getting spoke about an awful lot at the minute. So I'm going to come straight to that. You've spoke about women. So for the child point of view, if you were successful as being a councillor, Rita, and the child sex survey landed upon your remit to either impose on schools in your area or to withhold from your schools in your area, what stance would you take on that?
Oh, absolutely withhold it. In fact, if I had the choice, I would tear it up and bin it. There is no need for that in schools. What to do is, can you read, can you write, can you spell, can you count? That's what's going to get kids a job, not with a sex survey. And who's getting the answer to this, and why do they need it? Is there a darker side to this? It scares the living daylights me. I've got a young grandson, and I do not want that anywhere near him.
I mean,
there's no need for it.
I've got kids myself, and I share the same concerns, Rita. It is so frightening. And I know that the generational gaps between parents and their children and their grandchildren, yeah, things do move on. However, it seems that the safeguarding aspect has been taken out completely, and that is what sets the alarm bells ringing for me. And hopefully it's the same or similar for yourself. Know that there's much a difference in generation between us. However, there is a slight difference. So we need to accept that, well, yeah, things move on, but they don't move on to the extent of, to the detriment of women and children. And that's what I see with women's rights at the minute, and also this child sex survey. I mean, the census, have you been following the Scottish census? I mean, it's very concerning, the fact that, and this is the Scottish government that's saying that sex and gender can actually be disregarded. Both sex and gender, it's gone from sex only, and that's the stance that I see them making. It leads me to question their integrity more than anything else. I don't know about you.
I don't know, it scares me, but I think there's a darker side to this somewhere along the line. Why are they wanting to know this? A census should be male, female, what's your age, what area do you live in, blah, blah, blah. Not, well, you know, I mean, have you had sex? Are you identifying as a man or a woman? I actually read a story, and I thought, no, this cannot be true. But seemingly it was true. I think it was in America. A teacher gets sacked because she didn't meow to one of her pupils who identified as a cat.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, really.
It's
So she gets sacked. I mean, where's the love gone?
Aye, where do we go as a society? I mean, there was something from that I'd read similar, and it asked a very pertinent question for me. If you changed it ever so slightly and you identified as being out of the colour of your skin that you were born in, this would be getting blown up out of the water. But to identify the sex that you were born in is being pushed by the Scottish government. So, given that, I mean, it opens my eyes even more by going, right, well, but you can't be seen to be a critical thinker, or else you're a bigot, as the terms that are aimed at you.
Transphobe that they keep branding about. Well, the way they're treating women, is that not a phobia? Or do women just go, it's all right, we'll take your abuse, your violence, you're trying to cancel us, all the rest of it, that's okay, but I can't turn and say, I don't agree with you, then I get called a transphobic. No, I'm voicing my opinion, and the opinion of a hell of a lot of women in this country that just think, enough's enough. I mean, see with this COVID thing, right, when we had lockdown in 2020, and then we're starting to come out at night, see that 2 years, I feel as if, well, I woke up in a parallel universe. This is no longer the Scotland that I know. No, I don't know what has been on in the past 2 years, but it's like crazy, and I don't know how we've got to this point. And how we reset it and get back to normality. Aye,
it's as if, and this is something I've said. These are my words, and it's how I view it. It's as if they're trying to treat what was a mental illness that they've by a stroke of a pen they've reduced. What was a mental illness, they're trying to treat that by enforcing everybody else to go along with somebody else's ideology. But we're not all of that same thought. I mean, if anybody wants to dress as they like, act as they like, be as consenting adults, but when they're trying to enforce it upon everybody that this ideology is the future, and you're going to get resistance from that, because people are liberal to an extent, but they want to ensure that the society that's worked well enough for centuries continues. The forcing of, well, we don't want to listen to you, and excluding women completely from the conversation leads me to believe that it's nothing more than an attack on women to gain access to the most vulnerable in society.
It is, totally. I mean, I'm not going down the slagging route. I'm not going to slag any other political party. My views are my views, and I'm not going to stand here and slag any political party. However, Nicola Sturgeon came out and said women's views are not valid. Why is that? Women's views are valid. If a trans woman's views are valid, then why is my views not valid? At the end of the day, we all voted for her to bring independence, which has been shelved. So I'm okay to vote for it, and I'm okay to pay tax to keep this country, but my views are not valid.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so wrong.
Aye, it's wrong on every level, if you ask me, and again, it's so wrong. It's got, for me, it's got to be blatant. There's got to be an ulterior motive.
I think so.
Because we're allowed to have opinion on the Tories, we're allowed to have opinion on everything that they do. However, we're not allowed to have an opinion on the government that we've elected to bring independence after being told on national television that we voted for GRA. I mean, that's a blatant lie.
We never. That was not in the manifesto. Independence was in the manifesto. We have the lowest pensions in the whole of Europe, and I'm of pensionable age. I'm retiring this year. We've got the lowest pensions in Europe. Her promise was we'll bring your pensions up to in line with Europe. I mean, an old age pension is £800 odd a month. How do you expect people to live on that, especially now with everything that's going up?
Yeah.
So that's their promise in the manifesto, to increase our pensions, to get us independence. None of that's materialised. We won't be pulled out of Europe against our will. Well, we have been, and nothing's been done about that.
Mm-hmm.
So now that she was on the TV the night saying, you know, the independence and blah, blah, and I'm thinking, you get a motive here because we're coming up to elections in May. Is this another wee carrot we're dangling? Or are you actually going to do the will of the people of this country and get us out of this circus in Westminster?
Yeah,
Now's the time to do it.
Now is the time. I mean, the union have never been at a weaker point as far as, certainly I've been alive, and as far as the research that I've done, which isn't professional, it's just my own research. I need to qualify that. But if you've a look at, I don't know if you've seen the news coming from Northern Ireland over the past 24 hours, Rita. If you haven't, the first Irish, Northern Irish First Minister resigned because of, and again, it's because of Brexit. And Brandon Lewis, who's I don't know what his title is actually, had said something that was very interesting, that the devolved government in Northern Ireland has the right to do what they've done, or the announcement that Mr. Poots made that 24 hours ago, or just over it, in respect to the Northern Ireland Agreement. But if that being the case, does that not mean then that Scotland, also being a devolved nation of Parliament, has the same right? Therefore, why is Nicola Sturgeon insistent on an S30 and insistent on asking Boris Johnson for permission, even after 62% of the electorate voted to remain in the EU?
That's right.
And they've tried to blame it on the Tories. I mean, I'm turning into more of a cynic than I've ever been, Rita. Ian Blackford walked out of the House of Commons after appearing to stand up for what's right. Walked out before he was escorted out, which meant, again, he wasn't docked his
that's right.
it is for
lost his pay.
His pay. He then had TV interviews, which would have got him a wee bit more money. And again, is this all a foil because the local council elections are coming up, and perhaps the SNP just know just how much the electorate are switched on, and they're trying unionist tactics to try and keep Scotland under the boot of the Scottish government, which is completely odd for me actually voicing that.
I don't get it either. Why would you go, right, we're under Westminster rule, okay? Oh, no, we can't go. We give you money. No, we're not letting you go. No, it's because we give them money they're not letting us go. However, why would you ask your oppressor, excuse me, is it okay if we leave?
Yeah.
No, you turn around and say to them, we've had enough, we're off.
Yep.
Obviously, this is a matter for the Northern Ireland Executive. It is something that is within their legal remit. Obviously, we'll be looking at the outworkings of that, exactly what the legal advice is that Edwin has taken. But this is one of the frustrations is this, I have to say, is something we have been saying to the European Union for some time, was the kind of thing that we could see happening. It's exactly the sort of thing we have been warning about in terms of the stability of the executive and the decisions the executive ministers will take in order to ensure that products can move from Great Britain to Northern Ireland in a way that they always have done.
We're off.
Yep.
No, she's giving me wee bits of paper that she knows he's going to go. No chance. You don't ask, you tell. Alex Salmond didn't ask. Alex Salmond told them.
Aye, and I mean, Nicola Sturgeon is doing everything. I mean, and these are the things that I look at. She's told us that she feels British. Okay, you're a unionist. She's told us that we must recover in the union when everybody else is screaming that the only way to recover from a corrupt union is by leaving it.
Divorcing it.
Yeah. So who has continued to get being played here? Is it the people that are now voicing their concern against Nicola Sturgeon, or is it the people that are still backing Nicola Sturgeon? Because I know who I feel it's the ones that are still getting played. What's your views on it, Rita?
I think it's us that are getting played. We're getting played for fools. And then when she thinks that, oh, it's going against me, there's another wee carrot comes out and gets dangled, we'll give you independence. I mean, there was a thing, I don't know if it was yourself on your page, there was a page the other night I seen on Zoom or Twitter, and it had a headline for every month on a newspaper. Now's the time for independence. We'll have independence next year. Let's go for independence. And every month, when she thought the popularity was slumping, people were had enough. All of a sudden, here we go with another wee carrot. It's no carrot we need, it's freedom. It's a divorce from Westminster. And I don't think it's going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen under SNP. I think the only party that's actually genuinely for independence and is going to try its utmost to get it is Alba.
I mean,
And I've joined them.
Well, I've got to agree to in an extent with that Alba are Party for Independence. I like what ISP are doing also. They're trying. However, again, and I've said this on previous casts, I've noticed a lot bigger push from Alba, and that's what's going to get the voters. The fact that they've got a presence, and the fact that they're standing people on the basis of independence, poverty, and women's and kids' rights. I mean, things that a lot of people are so concerned about, that they've ended affiliation with the SNP, some for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, to move over to Alba because they've been dangled or drew along by the carrot for too long. And as you see, all of those headlines that come out of the National about, yeah, independence tomorrow, it's like jam tomorrow, again, for me, it's unionist tactics to try and keep people under, oh, well, we're
under the thumb.
Yeah, we need to stay. And this argument that they're the only viable route to independence. 6 mandates. 6 mandates. If they were the only viable route to independence, one of those mandates would have been used.
Exactly.
They're a devolutionist party. John Swinney, Nicola Sturgeon, and Alan Smith are people who have been either got to, or they don't work for the best interest of the Scottish people. That's my own opinions of it.
I tend to agree in that to a certain point. I think they're in a wee cushy number. They don't want to rock the boat. But they have to look at what the people want. People voted them in. They are supposed to be representing the people of this country, not the other way around. We're not working for them. They're supposed to be working for us. And I think they've kind of forgotten that.
Yeah, I mean,
we can vote them out as much as we voted them in.
Yes, and I think even again, and it harks back to the elections there in the 5th of May last year when we voted, and we were asked to vote SNP 1, Alba 2, vote yes, right? And that was probably one of the best strategists in politics that Scotland has ever had. And thankfully, he's still available and he's still putting himself up there after everything else that's been attempted. And again, we can't speak about certain things. We can't openly talk about these things because by doing so, it gives away the game. So they ensured that, well, we need to protect this, we need to protect that. And for me, that's pure unionist tactics. And people, for whatever reason, don't want to accept. I mean, it comes back to the old adage, it's easier to con somebody than convince them they've been conned.
Absolutely.
It's and it doesn't sit nice with me having to say that because for a time I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of people have done that. A lot of people would have given her the benefit of the doubt for a period. I
defended her in my work because there's a lot of my work was unionists, and every time she done the show, you know, the update, COVID update, there was a few of them, and I'd be like, no, wait a minute, she's doing a good job, she's this, she's that. I praised her up to the hilt until I thought, do you know what? Independence is getting further and further and further down this tunnel. We're never going to get it. No way SNP. So I changed my opinion of her, but then when the GRA thing came out, I thought, nah, do you know what? No. I'm not buying into that.
It's an attack on women for me, and
it is.
I'll be cynical enough to say it's an attack on women so that they can get access to the more vulnerable. Because I've always had strong women in my life, my mum, sisters, etc. So I've always been guided well, and women protect a lot better than men, and it's just by speaking to one another. Men are more concealed and they'll oh, there's a danger, right, okay, or the missus has said something that I need to be switched on about, and that's when we switch on. But I see that in other women. It's not just women in my life, and I think, well, why are they doing that? And that's what's kind of got me to the point of, right, well, I need to know what they know, because what they know is turning out to be what's actually happening. It's so accurate, and we're at a state now where, as you say that, sorry, not as you say, as you quoted Nicola Sturgeon as saying, is that women's fears and views are not valid. I mean, how can you invalidate over 50% of the electorate? I
exactly.
mean, to satisfy 0.4%. I mean, that shows to me that, well, there's, as I say, there's ulterior motives in the actions and the words that she's speaking. And of late, there's been the push to try and make it seem as if, oh well, we've got women's interests. When I don't know if you've seen the tweet for Kirsty Blackman after the David Goodwillie situation, when he was appointed or recruited as a player for Wraith Rovers, which has since been rescinded, as far as I'm hearing, over the past few hours. It's been rescinded to the point that they're trying to work out a settlement for his contract.
I actually signed them up for 2 years now, and they've reneged on it, so they can't just sign something for 2 years and just say, sorry, mate. So they have to give them some kind of settlement.
Yeah,
but then,
I mean,
as you said, Nicola Sturgeon was in the telly last night about women's rights, you know, and blah, 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 about this David Goodwillie story. And I went, hang on a minute. Where have you been for women's rights for months? You've not wanted to know. And then when women stood outside Holyrood a few months ago and demonstrated about what was going on,
yep.
And Murdo Fraser, who
Boo,
I'm not keening up, right, but I've got to give him credit for this. He stood up in that parliament and said, no, women have came to me and women have got a right to demonstrate and they've got a right to voice their opinions. And she stood in that parliament and she went, shame on you. Or we weren't too sure if it was shame on them. And now they've stopped any peaceful demonstrations, any demonstrations outside Holyrood. But that's what that parliament was built for. There's a big concourse there for peaceful demonstrations. So we've took away those rights as well. We've taken away our democracy as well. We can't have peaceful demonstrations. We can't march on Holyrood and think what we think. We can't march on Bute House. All under one banner. We're having marches. I went on a couple of them. They had a all under one banner march in Edinburgh. That was banned. Yep. What is it that she's frightened of?
Well, she's frightened of the people who elected her, and rightfully so. But we need to be stronger. People, we do need to be stronger. We need to be standing up for what's right, and no hoping for independence while it's getting dragged along with a carrot attached to it for every other issue to be made more important and installed quicker. I mean, it's shattering our society, and it's the union divide and conquer tactics. Can nobody see the similarities between the divide and conquer and who's implementing it, and being critical enough to go, those are union tactics. Why are they being implemented by the First Minister of Scotland, the British feeling First Minister of Scotland, might add? Those are her own words. She feels British. And a lot of Scots.
Something else. I never heard that one.
Oh, there's a video clip which I'll try to cut through.
At a Sikh temple in Glasgow, Nicola Sturgeon welcomed but questioned about COVID, local issues and another referendum. So why has she pitched people back into the independence debate?
What I've said in this election is that if you're voting SNP and to re-elect me as First Minister, first and foremost, you're voting for a First Minister whose top priority will be leading the country through the remainder of the COVID pandemic. You're also voting for the boldest, most transformative manifesto that any party has put before the Scottish people in a Scottish Parliament election. And when the crisis is over, yes, absolutely, you're voting for the right of the Scottish people to choose independence, should that be what the Scottish people want.
Now, the difference with a referendum this time round, assuming it happens, is that the nationalist independence family is split. Alex Salmond is running his own party, his own candidate. That's got to damage the cause, hasn't it?
Well, I'm not sure that's the case, but we'll see on polling day in terms of how votes are cast. But, you know, Alex Salmond's party currently is polling 1% in the opinion polls. That doesn't sound to be to me to be much of a split, more of a tiny splinter, if anything. I don't think in reality he is helping the cause of independence. You know, the cause of independence is not advanced by those who believe in it having an argument or a conversation amongst themselves about who believes in it most.
Do you feel at all British?
Yes, I've said this. This is not new. I've talked about this many, many times over the years. My grandmother was from the north of England. I've got family in England.
Just to support that, she said it on again on national television when she was questioned, Rita. No, we always say that, or any independence-seeking Scot always says that Scottish, not British. And yet you've got the First Minister saying the opposite. Taking down saltires from Bute House on order from Westminster at COP26.
I thought that was
selling off the renewables for 250 times as much capacity for less than the original price for the capacity that was quoted. Freeports, which is in an agreement with Tories again. And what was the latest? I mean, you could. There's a lot of different things. And the latest thing, again, the irony is trying to introduce enforced COVID lockdown powers to the Scottish government. Why? What is the reason behind that?
Control.
Yes, and that's it, because she knows that the natives are getting restless, and we're about to take what's ours, and we're only getting stopped by the person that was entrusted to get us over the line.
I know.
It's mental, if you ask me, that the fact that there's not enough critical thinking Scots can actually see that for what it is, and jump on the bandwagon of people that are celebrating 20 years being an MP at Westminster, celebrating 20 years of being an MP at Westminster, Mr. Wishart, you know, and these people that then turn around and call the Yes movement bigots and homophobes because they don't agree with the GRA. I mean, open your eyes, people. I mean, can you not see what's happening in front of them? Rita has been brave enough to come out here and say, well, no, women's rights and kids' rights, and I can see the dangers, and yet you've got elected representatives who can't or won't, perhaps.
They won't. They won't.
Perhaps
see
that's the answer.
Not that they can. But the thing about GRA, right? Okay, you're a guy and you want to be a woman, fine. Don't have a problem with that. On you go. I do have a problem, however, with a man putting a dress on and identifying as a woman while he's still an intact male, and then getting into changing rooms, getting into all sorts of kids' areas where he shouldn't be, like the Scouts, the Girl Guides especially. I saw a picture of one, I don't think it was up here, it was in England, a Girl Guide leader with a machine gun.
Yeah, standing in a leather dress, holding a machine gun.
That is scary.
Yeah, and there was a follow-up to that, I don't know if you were aware of it, but people who contacted the guides with concern, parents who contacted the guides with concern, well, then had their details forwarded on to the police.
That's right, the police paid them a visit.
No, this is pure Stonewall. This is pure control. This is a rogue organisation that has been brought in to disrupt the fabrics of Scottish society, that won't listen to women, and they won't listen to women in general. They're attacking women who are trying to defend their own children. I mean,
it's not right. I mean, if you remember the Dunblane massacre,
yes,
a lot of years ago. I mean, it must have been about what, maybe near around 30 years ago, maybe. You remember him? A guy goes in a primary school with a gun, and he massacred innocent kids and a teacher. But we've got a guy standing with a machine gun in charge of Girl Guides. Surely that's got to ring alarm bells. What if he takes a flaky? What if somebody gets a hold of that machine gun and runs amok with it?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't know if in the picture with the machine gun, whether it was a real gun. It makes no difference to
Doesn't
me.
make any difference.
It's the intention that I'm going to go on to say. It makes no difference to me whether it was a fake or whether it was real. It's the intention and the consequences, or the potential consequences, as Rita's highlighted. For if you've a look at the Dunblane massacre and you go back there, and those files have been locked for over 100 years so that we can't get access to the information, or the public won't get to know the reasoning of.
I think if anybody is either shown a toy gun, a water pistol, or a gun, and it's representing and they're near children, that's got to ring alarm bells.
Yes.
We have to do everything we can to protect our children.
Yep.
Children are the future of our country. You cannot have maniacs running about with guns and think, oh, it's only a toy gun, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, the fact that the police paid these women a visit is absolutely shocking. So if my daughter was in the Girl Guides and I'd have been like, absolutely no way, and the police paid me a visit, I've just said, okay, so do you have kids? Would you not be shocked or alarmed if your children was getting into that Guides and he or she was running it, pictured with a machine gun, and what was it, dominatrix it was wearing as well?
There was something that I read as well, and I don't know, I've not seen anything that confirms this. It was something that I read that just said that there was also talk of the guide leaders being able to advise on, what was it, contraception. I mean, that's again,
not their place.
That rings alarm bells for me. Why are they advising all with the best will in the world? People who go to the guides and brownies and the scouts are people that are trying to learn things and trying to make good of themselves and be better, you know, and improve their lives or others. But to have chat of contraception when you've got so many concerns with these people that are coming in and identifying as women, that sets off other alarm bells in my head, to the point that we're talking about they're trying to
grooming the kids.
About grooming the kids. And when you look at this child sex survey and how it was supposed to be anonymous, that it wasn't, they can identify each child that fills it in. It then leads you to, is there a network or something going on that a lot of people are possibly not aware of that are being facilitated here?
And where in this sex survey, which I think should be binned, but when any kid fills that out and it goes to wherever it goes, does that get filed away and that follows that kid throughout its life?
Everywhere, yes. For the
So
rest of
that
its
is
life.
scary. So if that kid has maybe done something and maybe committed a crime, then they can pull this file out and say, oh, well, yes, you filled it in and you said X, Y, Z.
Yes. I mean, it's
wrong. It's so wrong.
It screams of a dictatorship, and it screams of potential future issues that we could be avoiding by not having this. And by standing up like we are at the minute and voicing their concerns, are very valid concerns. That goes for everybody here that's got a concern. If you've got a concern, it's valid. It may not be valid to a specific person or organization. It's a valid concern that you hold. So to be rubbished as a collective, again, screams of danger to me. It screams of ulterior motives and that old divide and conquer tactic, because I'm noticing in the Welsh independence movement, which I try to follow as well, being an independentista, I try and follow them all. The trans issue is now becoming more apparent in there because the independence side of Wales is growing. And again, it leads back to me going, right, well, I mean, you'd commended Murdo Fraser, boo, right, the Tory. And John, the co-host, said, why are the Tories, Labour and Lib Dem not getting caught up in this when the Scottish government are getting caught up in it? it would just be like the Tories to have no control in Scotland, no say in Scotland since 1955. Thinking in a way that, well, the independence movement is growing. How do we stop the independence movement? Well, we get specific people to introduce these things that are going to divide and conquer, and we'll ride in as the saviours. Oh, look, we're the good Tories. Whereas further down the line, they could then, like the vow, we've tricked you into staying, and now we're implementing the GRA. We're enforcing it because it's them that's been bought. I mean, there's all these permutations. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I think you're right in what you're saying. I think there's an element here of put the fear out there, and as you say, divide and conquer. So you've got women fighting the rest of society. I also think that there's what's going on now, even down in England. They have got it, but it's not as prominent.
Yes.
She seems to be pushing this. Now, yeah, if you want to be trans, fine. However, that is not the main issue in Scotland. Apart from independence aside, poverty is the main issue in Scotland. I mean, every bill that you've got is going through the roof. There are people on the breadline just now that if you put their bills up anymore, they're going to be struggling big style.
Yeah.
And what's the Scottish Government doing about that? Nothing. They're wanting all the councils to put up the council tax. Now, Alex Salmond had a freeze on it, and as he said, he had a good relationship with all the councils in Scotland, and they agreed to freeze it and help during the banking crisis.
Yep.
And as he said, if we could do it then, we can do it now. So he's wrote to Kate Forbes to say, look, freeze it, because with your energy prices that just get through the roof, your food, your fuel, and every other cost, for people with this council tax, it's not going to afford it. So, but no, the SNP is pushing this through as well. They're not interested in poverty. The drug deaths in Scotland are appalling. The homelessness in Scotland is appalling. The NHS, my daughter actually works for the NHS. The NHS is struggling, but there's no money getting pumped into that. And now the only thing that is forefront in this agenda is the GRA. That's their number one priority.
Yep.
Get your drug deaths, get your homelessness, get your poverty, your child poverty sorted out, and then talk about that. That is not a priority. All these other ones are, because it's going to cause deaths. People are going to starve to death, freeze to death. Kids are going to bed hungry. This is just, people are going to lose their houses because they can't afford the rent.
Yeah.
But that's not priority. That is priority. Sort that out first and then work your way down the list. GRA is not a priority. Everything else is, but everything else took a back seat. And I just think it's not right. It's just not right.
I mean, it's divisive policies, and again, that's that divide and conquer. I mean, you'd said there, you'd mentioned poverty, and I'm so glad that you have, Rita. One of the SNP councillors, Mary Hunter, had said that the trans issue was above poverty.
I've seen it
in Scotland. I mean, how you can be a councillor and actually come away with that, knowing the poverty that's in Scotland, it just rubbishes your argument straight away. It just makes you look like the controlled person that you are, and not standing up for your electorate and the people that put you in the position that you're in. And I hope, and this is a message direct to you, I hope that you get taken away from that councillor role by the electorate, because you don't deserve to be in the position that you're in. If that's what your angle, and you're telling me that 0.4% of the electorate's feelings are more important than the poverty in Scotland, you've not got a leg to stand on.
No, I
Absolutely
totally agree.
not.
I mean, you've got wee kids that are not getting a meal. They're going to bed hungry. If they don't get a school meal, they're probably not eating that day. There's families that they're not eating to try and give their kids food. They can't burn their heating in their cold and damp houses. So it's like a vicious circle. Your house is cold and damp. You can't afford to burn the heating, so your house is cold and damp. Now, I've been there to a certain extent. My first house when I got married, well, it was a high-rise flat in Kilbride in East Kilbride. Right. It was underfloor heating. You couldn't afford. I was on. I came back. I was working in Germany with my husband, and we came back. So we'd signed on. I was pregnant at the time, so I couldn't work. So we signed on, and that was the one and only time in my life. And I was determined. As I had my daughter, I was going to work. But we couldn't afford to burn the heating because it was underfloor heating. We had a 2-bar electric fire that maybe went on for 10 minutes a day. We used to sit in a settee with blankets around us, trying to get a heat. I've been there to a certain point in time when in the winter, my baby couldn't sleep in her room. We all slept in the living room because it was so cold and damp. So I know what people are going through, and it's so wrong.
Right.
I mean, in this day and age, 2022, we've got people are living in damp, mouldy, freezing cold houses, can't heat it, can't eat. But she thinks, as you say, a small minority a priority over that. No, they're not. They most certainly are not.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no argument there, Rita. There's absolutely no argument there. I mean, you'd mentioned homelessness in Scotland and the drugs deaths, or the drug rate even in Scotland. These are things that should be under Nicola Sturgeon's control, and she has said that she's taken her eye off the ball. And again, it appears that she's taken her eye off the ball on everything, because it's drugs, it's homelessness, it's independence. I mean, it's independence. She's taken her eye off the ball on independence. We are hoping to have the Homeless Project Scotland on in a podcast very soon, just to find out that I've been homeless, and it wasn't a nice place to be. I've never been in the situation where a lot of homeless people. I've always had people that I could kind of a fall back on to go for a meal. Even though I didn't have a place to put my head down at night, I could always go somewhere to have a meal somewhere. And at that time, that let me know who I was as a person, and that we're a lot stronger than we give ourselves credit for as individuals. But when it comes to increasing bills and increasing gas prices and increasing food costs and everything's increasing, the wages are stagnant, the economy is in the state that it's in because of Brexit, which is something that gets completely ignored. And yet we were told we wouldn't be taking out the EU against our will, and they failed on that. They failed on every single important issue to Scottish people, and still they try and enforce something that up to 80% of the electorate are against. I mean, we're not in North Korea, we're in Scotland. So why are we accepting it?
A quarter of the people agree with GRA. So that means 3/4 of us don't.
Yeah.
So I mean, the majority say no, but she's pushing this to be minority.
Yep.
And then they're on about healthcare. Now, you know yourself, try and get a doctor's appointment or a dentist's appointment. It's just a waste of time. You cannot get it, right? But they're out demonstrating healthcare for trans people or trans women or whatever, right? Yeah, I agree with that. But healthcare should be across the board for everybody.
Yep. And again,
it's as if they're special. They're entitled to get healthcare and doctor's appointments before the rest of us.
Yeah.
Or maybe some wee woman that's maybe an 80-year-old is ill. She can't get a doctor's appointment.
It shows open discrimination against every other person who's not trans, as far as I can see. That you are being discriminated against by them trying to push the trans issue the way it's been pushed. Openly discriminated against, because what about poverty? What about homelessness? What about drugs death? What about all these people that are affected by this? It's okay, but that's not important at the minute because the trans thing needs to be dealt with. Are you having a laugh, man? It's like, for me, it's mental.
Right. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, you be whatever you want to be, that's fine, but you cannot take priority over a wee kid that's starving. A kid that's lying in a cold, damp, wet house. Surely to God, even the ones that are trans must see this and think, hang on a minute, my life's not that bad. I wouldn't like to be in their situation. Put yourself in their shoes and see how you would feel, but lived in a cold, damp house, not getting a meal from one day to the next. But as long as you're trans, no, it's not right. I'm sorry, but it gets my goat, it rips my neck.
It appears, Rita, that they can't because they're too busy thinking about themselves. And that's the issue that I see. And if you don't agree with them, you get shouted at, you get cancelled, or you get the attempt to shout and cancel you so that, well, that's another voice that doesn't agree with us. Make sure that they're not influencing anybody. It's not working. It's not
No,
working.
it's not working. It's going the other way because people are waking up to it now.
Aye.
And I think women have got this thing. We've always had it. Women have always stuck together. Seeing an injustice, women have always stuck together. And I remember my mother tell me this when they lived in the tenements in Glasgow way back. If there was an issue or a problem with a woman in the tenement, the women all got together with her, like maybe go to scheming. They would all get together and they would work out the problem. And if it was her husband that was maybe beating her up or whatever, the men in the close would get together with the man and give him a wee warning. But it was always the women that stuck together with the woman and solved the problems. She used to say that you didn't need to go to a doctor because all these wee women here, they would sort it for her. Oh, you do this, you do that, you do this. The women were always there to stick up for each other. And even now, we still are. If we see an injustice as women, we'll stick together. And I don't think she's reckoned on that.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier on, like, I've always been runabout strong women in my life. And I see the ones that are in my life, and I can see strong women. And what I can see, it's really heartening, to be honest, how women are banding together and the groups that they're forming to try and, as you say, to sort out the issue for us all, not just for women, it's for us all that they're doing it. And I think we should be giving them a wee bit more credit, a wee bit more respect, and like bigging them up. And as you say, the women get together, and then before you know it, they've maybe said to their man, or they've said to their brother, or they've said to somebody, and eyes start opening. We start seeing things that we weren't first. That was the first thing that I noticed. It was, oh, somebody had to point that out to me, but now that you've pointed it out, you can't hide it. I mean, and that is the thing. It's like all these powerful guys that do things, and I think this is why Nicola Sturgeon's got the hold that she has, because she's played herself, or tried to play herself as the feminist to her fingertips. I mean, I'm going for the tip of her nail back to her fingertip is how much a feminist she is. I mean, there's again, it's gaslighting the things that she's saying, even of late, given the things that she's said in the lead up to or just after the election with the GRA and women not being valid, their views not being valid. I mean, it's gaslighting 101. And again, who does gaslighting better than ND, or who thinks they do better than ND? That's a pure unionist trait.
Absolutely.
Right, let's talk about East Kilbride, and let's talk about your area and what you're going to be doing, right? So what section of East Kilbride, because East Kilbride split into two parts?
Well, where I live at the moment is East Kilbride South, right? But I'm actually I grew up in the Westwood Murray area of East Kilbride, which is East Kilbride South Central. Okay. So that's going to be my ward. Okay. And I know a lot of people there. And before I did this, before I moved up to Lindsayfield, I actually used to be a member of the Westwood Community Council.
Right, okay.
And we met one Thursday of a month, and we used to maybe somebody would say, you know, the violence or the vandalism or whatever in the Westwood, and we'd all get together in the council. And to be fair to him, John Anderson, SNP councillor, tended to sit in with us quite a lot.
Right.
And we'd say, right, we've got an issue about vandalism, or we've got drugs or whatever, and it would get sorted. And sometimes the police would come up as well, and they would say, right, such and such an area has got a problem at the moment, we're trying to solve it. There was a few things we managed to fix. There was there was a swing park in the Westwood that had a kind of sloping stairs. But if it was icy, oh my God, it was like a skating rink. You just went right down it. And there was a few old buddies had hurt themselves. So we said, no, we need some kind of railing or something. So we fought with the council, and John Anderson, the SNP guy, he came up and he went, right, so we got hand railings for that. The lockups were falling apart and they were all vandalised. We got them fixed and refurbed. So I did that. So I'm kind of used to fighting for things, fighting for people's rights, fighting to get things fixed, fighting to bring up an area, to make it a bit better. So this is the area I'm going to be in, the South Central. So it's Westwood Murray area, which I know a lot of people in it anyway. I grew up there, so. I've
got a very direct connection to that area, to be fair, Rita, and there's family members that live there. So I'll be quite happy to be passing your name along and making sure that that's the X that they put down come the 5th of May. So given that, and we've spoke about some issues, but let's talk about what's happening in the news of a concerning point today, or no concerning if you're an independent supporter. There's been a lot of Boris Johnson's close unit starting to resign from his government. Do you see Boris Johnson as an asset to Scottish independence, or is he an asset to the union? What's your personal thoughts on that?
I think he's an asset to Scottish independence because the Scots can't stand him. Whether you're a unionist or not, the majority of people you speak to can't stand the sight of him. But this is a man that made the rules, but he broke them. But then he doesn't know what it was a party or not. Come on. The only thing I will say about Johnson, and that, was it Robert Slavin? Was it Robert Slavin that was on the other night?
Robert Slavin was on the other night,
I totally agree with him. Boris plays the fool. He's not.
No.
This is an act. He's a very shrewd, sneaky wee man. He knows exactly what he's doing. He comes on, he bumbles away, and you have to get a clue what he's saying, but he bamboozles you. And then he comes out with something else that takes the flap off. I mean, see the Boris Johnson bus with 350 million for the NHS, right?
Yep.
Which was a total lie. Yep. So then just after that, if you Googled Boris's bus, he started making buses. Paper buses or cardboard buses, I don't know. So when you typed in Boris's bus, you didn't see the 350 million NHS, you seen the wee buses that he was making.
Yeah.
He's not a stupid man. In fact, see if he was an actor, I think he'd have won an Oscar by now. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Aye. I mean, it's that paid actors, they're all paid to go in and do what they've been paid to do by people with a lot more power. And again, you've got to look at the part that the media plays in this.
Tactic in life, if that's what you're driving at, it is often useful to give the slight impression that you are deliberately pretending not to know what is going on, because the reality may be that you don't know what is going on, but people won't be able to tell the difference.
You've got to look at the part of, well, I mean, the police, even the police.
Oh, the police are in his pocket. I'm sorry, but the Met Police are in his pocket. See any other police commissioner for everything that's been coming out about the Met, about the sleaze, the rapes, that wee girl that was murdered. See any other police force in previous times? They'd have been sacked. But she can do what she likes, and then it's her wife that's in charge of the investigation.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's Sajid Javid's brother that's in charge. Come on, it's a stitch up.
Yeah, it's a scam. It's a pure scam, and it's a way to keep control. Right, what's the, if you were a successful being elected, Rita, what would be the first thing that you would be trying to do from a personal point of view as councillor at East Kilbride?
First thing I would do would be contact people in the Westwood and Murray, right? It's not a poor area, but there's a lot of like people that are kind of struggling a wee bit.
Yeah.
Find out what their issues are, what their concerns are, and try and solve them. I'll not promise that I can do everything, but I will try my best to solve whatever issues I've got and problems I've got. But the first thing I would tackle is that town centre. It is a tip. Now, that used to be the Crown in East Kilbride. It was beautiful. It was great. You go down there. It's not so much closed units. That's in every centre and every high street. It's filthy. It's run down. There's no investment. The bus station is a no-go area. You wouldn't actually walk out there and go to the bus station at night because you've got all the wee nets hanging about. That needs to be cleaned up. I don't know what visitors think when they get off a bus there and come into that town centre. Because I know what I think when I come off a bus and look at it, I think, oh dear Lord. And then we had a beautiful big hotel, Stuart Hotel.
That's right.
It was there for the late 50s, 60s. I used to work in the Stuart. Then they knocked that down, and it was promised like it was the G4 or the G1 group that was supposed to take it over as a bar, restaurant, nightclub. It's never happened. It's lay derelict for about nigh on 20 years. It's a tip. That would be the thing that I would do. Get rid of all that, level it, landscape it, and make it nice for people coming off the bus stop, couple of wee benches and whatever. This year is 75 years anniversary of the town of East Kilbride. On the 6th of May, we're 75 years old in the actual new town of East Kilbride. And look at the state of it.
Yep.
We should have a pride in our town. I mean, it's just, honest to God, I look at this town and I think, oh my God. I mean, I'm 65, born and bred here, and I look at this town and I think, this really needs to be brought back up. It's filthy, it's run down, there's glass bottles, there's litter, it's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, these
If
are
you
all...
want to invest in this town and bring money into this town and shop local, as they keep saying, then you need to bring people in, because people are going to Livingston, they're going to Bray Heads, they're not coming to East Kilbride because there's better facilities and you're not paying for parking the way you are in East Kilbride either.
I mean, do you think that that's down to some lack of funding that the Scottish government have control of?
No, I don't think the Scottish government have control. However, it's an SNP run council. But when you go into Hamilton and look at Hamilton, it's lovely. They've got wee flower beds, they've got this, they've got that. Hamilton was beautiful at one point, at the detriment of East Kilbride, because all the money was going to Hamilton. I haven't been in Hamilton for a few years, so I can't comment now. But East Kilbride has just went run down and Hamilton's brought up. And yet we're celebrating 75 years. I mean, John Ross, the leader of the South Lanarkshire Council, is in the paper saying, yeah, it's 75 years East Kilbride and blah, 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 we're doing this, we're doing that. Clean the town up.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Again, it's some of the things that are happening, and the people that live in those areas know it better than anybody else. You know what I mean? They know, because they've experienced good and bad times. We need to be honest. Scotland has never just had it good all the time. I mean, we look at the things that potentially that are decent, and we hold them as the highest in the highest regard. Whereas the things that are really, really bad, we try and make the best of them and go, oh, well, this could be a wee bit better. But as you say, it's the people that live in those areas that know better than anybody. Oh, well, it's been better. It's been better when we've had worse. You know, it's like worse people in control and Labour governments and everything else. I know that the devolved nations struggle a wee bit, but does that not add more weight to the fact that it's because we're not independent, it's because that we don't have independence that all of these things are worsening? And yet, for me, the only person who can ensure that or put us in that place is reneging on what they were elected for.
I know. I don't understand that. I don't get it, but she seems to be playing the Westminster game.
Yeah.
And the bit that really got me, now we know what the BBC is. We know it's anti-Scottish. It's always been anti-Scottish. Yep. I mean, they proved it after the 2014 referendum, the lead up to that. All the propaganda, all the rest of it, nonsense. Right, so you've got an anti-Scottish broadcasting corporation. Ian Blackford last week stuck up for the BBC. Nicola Sturgeon this week, stuck up for the BBC.
For the second time, or at least the second time.
The biased broadcasting corporation is anti-Scottish. Why would you stick up for that?
Yep.
Because they don't report the truth. They report what they're told to report. And they're on about Boris Johnson and everything that's going on and him going to Russia and all that nonsense. Do you know what's never been reported? The lorry convoys from Dover that would choke a horse. That never gets reported.
Again, it's to keep us all under control, because free media and Scottish free media are trying their best to kind of highlight all the things that the media seem to hide from us, just to show that, well, if we can do it and it's no costing us anything to show that, how can you do it when you've got all the funding or all the money that you've got?
Because they don't want to admit that Brexit has been a shambles.
A disaster, an absolute disaster. And as a result, the union is a disaster that's crumbling round about Westminster. And our First Minister's still, no, we need to stay here to recover. I don't get it. I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. She should be going down there and saying, do you know what, Boris? We've had enough.
Aye.
We're big enough, we're rich enough, and we've had enough, and we're off.
That's
Absolutely.
That's exactly what should be getting said, because for too long we've been told we're too wee, too poor, too stupid. Well, no, and if you stay remaining to this, it shows that, well, perhaps you're too scared, too stupid, and too, I don't know, something else.
But then it's like a control thing, because if you tell somebody long enough that they can't do something or they're stupid, they eventually start to believe that. Oh, well, I'm too stupid, I can't do that. So
I mean,
this is what's
an abusive relationship, isn't it? It's an abusive relationship, and look, there's the majority of Scottish people see it for what it is, and we try our best, that because we see it for what it is, to elect people to best represent us. And okay, we've been lied to by some of those people, blatantly lied to by some of those people, because we're still here. We're no further forward. It's worsening by the day. It's worsening by the Westminster announcement. I mean, the gas or the energy price increases that are going on. You had Rishi Sunak on the TV the day to say that, oh yeah, we're going to give a loan of up to £350, I think it was, that can be repaid over 5 years. Those figures might not be spot on, but it was in the region of, because there's been mention of £200, there's been mention of £350, so in the region of that, as a loan back to people that they can repay over 5 years. What about next year?
With interest on it, maybe?
Well, again, the finite details, I'm not sure, and I need to say that. I need to do some more research on it. It was just announced before coming on here,
That's right.
about an hour or so ago. So I'll need to do some research on it to find out. But what about next year? Because the price is not going to go up next year again.
Looking back up in August.
We seem to do all the time.
Why have we lifted the price cap in the first place? Why has this government allowed this price cap to be lifted? Why just leave it where it is?
And the thing that
somebody's making a hell of a lot of money out of all this.
Well, I'm just going to go in and say, as your door opens and somebody walks in at the back of you, I don't know, it's all right, they're off camera. That's all right, I'll cut that wee bit out.
It's all right, just make me a cup of tea.
Good. Brilliant, I like that. No, I'm leaving that in then. It's well trained. A cup of tea. Good. Right, to get back to, if you have a look at the fact that the Chancellor of the Exchequer is writing off, was it 8.7 billion in fraudulent PPE contracts and something else, while increasing national insurance to try and recoup some of that money. And as we say, that it's a scam, these are getting played. It was a tax dodge that Brexit happened for. All of these billions in test and trace, all of these billions in PPE contracts, all of these billions in fraudulent claims for fraudulent claims for furlough that came from, again, Tory-led councils.
That's right.
Look, waking up, folks.
This is not just about COVID grants and loans. It has emerged on page 199, as my honourable friend, the member for Wansbeck, highlighted during the debate, of the Department of Health and Social Care annual report, that £8.7 billion of losses in PPE have had to be accounted for in that department's spending. Just pause and think about that. £8.7 billion of losses. What could that have done in the NHS? It is twice the government's entire hospital building programme. And it's dismissed on page 199 of the department's annual report. And if you add, for example, that's 8.7 billion to the 4.3 billion that we've been highlighting today, you get a whole year's worth of receipts from the national insurance rise that's going to be imposed on families in April. So the Chancellor says this is all about public services, but it is impossible to escape the conclusion that these taxes are, at least in part, to fill the hole caused by this colossal mismanagement of public money.
They're taking the piss out of these, right? They're taking every penny that they can and try to pass it off as, yeah, it was the pandemic and we were forced upon it. Brexit the pandemic's a cover for Brexit. Well, the things that have happened within the pandemic are a cover for how bad Brexit was. And Scottish people are critical thinking enough to notice that, but no critical thinking enough to notice that we're still getting held here by somebody who feels British.
Who we never voted for and haven't voted for since the 50s. We've never voted for
the Tories, we've not voted them for the 1955. I mean,
no,
we're two totally different countries. We're governed with England's best interests at heart, and it's not necessarily England's best interests at heart, because there's a lot of England that suffer the same as Scotland. We're governed by Eton and Westminster's best interests at heart, and that's the true fact of the situation. We're controlled by a media who are influenced by them because they know that, well, we can still have the free run that we're having by donating to them or by having them donate to us, so that there's that mutuality between them. Well, we'll keep you right if you keep us right. And we're governed for Westminster's benefit and for the rich elite's benefit.
Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland said to Westminster, do you know what?
Like Barbados have done.
We're off.
Yeah.
Watch them crumble.
Then
I've spoke to a couple of English people. I mean, why do you hate England? We don't hate, and this is about don't hate England. I don't hate the English. I've got English friends. That's not what this is about. It's about the way Westminster are treating this country.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're against. And you think, oh, well, you just hate the English. No, I don't. That's nothing to do with it. It's a whole different issue.
Absolutely.
It's Westminster.
Absolutely. It's. I mean, I've got not just friends south of the border. I've got family south of the border, and they're the same. They say, "Oh, Scotland needs to be more switched on because what's happening here, we can see what's happening here. Scotland's got a chance. Scotland's got a chance to change it. Wales have got a chance. Ireland have got a chance to make changes. And when I say Ireland, I mean include the north in that as well. And you're seeing of late, over the past 24 hours especially, the fact that Brandon Lewis had said that, well, the devolved Northern Irish government have a right to say or to act the way that they're acting in respect to Brexit. It just gives the game away of that all of the devolved governments had that same right, and it was, again, they were excluded from the negotiations for Brexit.
That's
it was all done by the Brexit party, or let's get Brexit done people, you know. It was all done by people,
and as you say, it was
benefited financially.
Because the Europeans, the Europe was going to actually, I think it was at January the 1st, they had to declare their offshore accounts. So this mob have went, all right, well, we'll just get Brexit done and hide all this money.
Yep.
That's what that was about. And then you had the element of, I want my country back. I want all the foreigners out. Every country needs foreign workers to survive.
Yeah.
Look at the statement now. Hospitality was made up 3/4 of foreign workers and students. Look at them now. They're struggling because they can't get the staff.
Yep. I mean,
I worked in Germany. I was a foreigner. I worked in Germany. I had the good fortune to go over there in the early 80s and work in Berlin when we had freedom of movement. I went over there with a suitcase and a rucksack and worked for 3.5 years in Berlin and then came back. I absolutely enjoyed that. But I was a foreigner in Germany, working in their economy and paying tax. We need foreign workers here, and let's get the foreigners out. Okay, so you're going to take their job, and they've all sat and went, I'm not working for that. I'm not going to pay for that.
It's the exceptionalism, isn't it? It's the exceptionalism. And again, this is where I feel sorry for a lot of people, because a lot of people, and we've said this before in many podcasts, and not just political ones, just in our general independence podcast, we talk about Scotland, Rita, that a lot of people aren't interested in politics. It's not something that they go to. It's not their go-to for finding out information. A lot of people then only switch an eye or turn an ear to politics if something is so bad that it affects them so much. And I think politicians play on that, and they run the Johnny Foreigner ads, and they try and encourage people that don't know any better, because I've seen it on the news, and as we know, BBC will lie about anything, and they lie about Scotland very regularly. I mean, I set up, I done a wee mock thing, the You Canny Scotland News, you know, it's like as if, well, no, you canny Scotland, and it's to run you down, and it's to keep that control, it's to make some people, because they'll get that 6-8%, possibly a lot more previously, but Scottish folk especially are switched on it, but they'll still have that 6 or 8% of people that believe what they're reporting.
That's right.
And
but they said it
there
in
you
the
go.
BBC, you're like,
and how else do we get them now? Now it's social media. So now they're on social media, and again, it's you're getting called this, or you're getting called that, or you're getting called this, or you're getting called that, because well, they're a such and such. Because I seen somebody from the Tories say that. I seen somebody from, in this case, the SNP saying that people that don't agree with the current Scottish government, they're bigots. No, we weren't the bigots before. We didn't agree with them. We didn't agree with them. We still voted for them, but we didn't vote for the rubbish that they're trying to push us. It leaves a lot of questions for me.
It does.
I mean, it's good that people are switching on. It's good that you've said a lot of the things that you've said, Rita, because it gives me reassurance knowing that okay, we've got people that are trying to push an agenda that is against up to 80% of the electorate. And the 80% of the electorate are now being bold enough and brave enough to say no. And as a result, you'll have a 10% of those 80% that will do things that you're doing. No, well, I'm going to run for council. I'm going to get my voice heard. I'm going to try and hold things up in the council chambers that this Scottish government are trying to progress through and Parliament against the will of the people of Scotland. And
it's like Brexit all over again.
Aye.
They put Brexit on as against Scotland's will.
Aye.
Now she's pushing GRA against 3/4 of the Scottish people's will. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy.
Aye, against even more folk that than voted to remain in the EU. So I mean, it's only going one way. Does it then get to the stage where it doesn't make any difference? It's what that person feels. No, I'm implementing that. That's a dictatorship.
Well, I think that's exactly the way this is going at the moment. Do you know, I was never really into politics. I used to turn the telly on, I used to shout at them, idiots, right? Look at state of hand, right? I really used to lose it. My husband still does to a point, right? But I never got into politics. My dad he really admired Margot MacDonald, and I liked Margot because she was just out there, said what she thought, and I really liked it. I admired the woman. But I never get involved in politics, apart from, as you say, like shouting at the telly, like everybody does, until this GRA, this sex survey, this women's voices don't count. That is a bit when I went, enough. I'm not sitting back here, and I've fought long and hard. I mean, I started working in the early 70s, working in factories, and we didn't get equal pay and equal rights in the factories in the days. We'd maybe in a bonus line, right? And we'd all have bonuses. So, but if a guy was on the line making bonus, doing the exact same job, he get paid more than us. And we were forever going out and strike. I mean, if you remember in the 70s, it was like, oh, don't let the gaffers have right, everybody out. We were out in the car park more often than we were actually in working. We were out and strike all the time at one point. But that was one of the reasons. It was, well, wait a minute, we're all working and getting a bonus. We Johnny standing next to us, or at the end of the line, getting a bonus. But Johnny's bonus is higher than ours. He's doing the exact same job.
Yep.
And all through, like, do you remember the film? I don't know if you've seen it, Made in Dagenham. It was about the Ford factory in Dagenham. And it was women that went and strike.
I have the name didn't ring a bell. I remember it now.
The women went and strike because the men were getting better conditions and better pay for the same job. And they all went out and strike and they get vilified. It was actually, was it Winnie? Oh, she was in the Labour government with Harold Wilson.
Oh, hold on.
Can't remember her name. She took a delegation and she met the women in Dagenham. And she approved their pay scales, their equal rights, and everything. But women in Dagenham all went out and strike and they were vilified as well by the governments. How dare they go out and strike? But they fought to get the rights that future generations took for granted.
Aye, I mean, and that's the thing. We're getting to, or it seemed to be, and I need to go pre-pandemic here and possibly to pre-confirmation of Brexit. that women's rights, hard fought though they were actually coming to a parallel with men's rights, which is right, and the way right, fair, and the way it should be. And now, since then, it's everything to draw them back, and
back the way.
Aye, to the point that, right, well, we need to erase women so that we can.
So we're going to be the wee subservient housewives sitting in the house with not a thought of our own, not a voice. We're not allowed to voice our opinion. We're not allowed to disagree with anything. So we're going back to the Victorian days with this. Now, my granny and my granny's granny and my mother, they didn't fight long and hard for women's rights over the years to start getting it eradicated back to what it was, because we all fought for women's rights. So see this younger generation now, what they take for granted was thanks to my generation, my mother's and my granny's generation. And to a certain point, Nicola Sturgeon, in the position she's in, is in that position because the women of previous generations fought for women to be in top jobs. And it sickens me that we've fought for all this, that people take for granted. She's sitting there running a country, but if she stopped thinking about it, it wasn't for her granny, her granny's granny that fought, she probably wouldn't be in that position. It'd be a man in that position.
Exactly. Was it by any chance that diagram, was it Rita O'Grady?
It was.
There you go. I just done a wee quick search there while we were checking, right?
My namesake.
Your namesake as well. That's why I wanted to get that in there. So that ties us up quite nicely, actually, Rita. Because I want you to put out just a final message for vote for you come the 5th of May. So on you go. It's over to you.
Right. Vote for Alba on the 5th of May. I'm standing in East Kilbride South Central for independence and for women's rights. Vote for me and I will fight tooth and nail for your rights, I promise.
Brilliant. Right, so for Rita Baillie, for Tweed Street Scotland Occupied, Cinnamon Bridges, this is Tyrocle Saltire. It's good night for this evening and we'll catch you all soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.